Am I the asshole for telling my brother's wife she's responsible for his health declining? My brother 30 is diabetic. Has type 1 diabetes and got it from when he was young. As his older sibling, I grew up watching my parents managing this condition for him. He has always been traumatized by this condition and never come to terms with it, so what he used to instill is act like his condition doesn't exist. The family, mom is now deceased, didn't know how to handle it because if we let him act like that then there would major consequences, so we took it upon ourselves to manage his condition for him. We'd watch his eating habits and correct them, watch his insulin intake, and encourage him to live healthy. When he brought his now wife home, we told her how it is and that he can be reckless and in denial about his condition, and so she needed to help and work with us and keep an eye on him. She did her best at first but started caving into his complaints about not being able to eat this or that, or when he complains about his insulin intake and having to pay for it. He got increasingly worse the past 3 months. We didn't know exactly what was going on till his wife called to tell us he was in the hospital because of a hyperglycemic episode. His blood sugar levels were too high, he almost went into a diabetic coma. The reason for this was because he wasn't taking the right dosage of insulin. I talked to his wife and had an argument with her. She said he deliberately kept stretching out his insulin dosage to be able to save insulin and not have to buy it. I told her still she should have had kept an eye on him. It's unfortunate that their insurance is screwed and financial situation is rough, but she should have stopped him and not stood there watching. She said I was being too hard on her, but I told her that if he was doing this under the family's watch we wouldn't have allowed it, and so she bears part of the blame for him staying in the hospital. She started crying and asked for a minute for herself. I went home because I couldn't see him after waiting for long. My dad called later asking about my conversation with sister-in-law. I refrained from talking about it, but he said she called him and told him everything. He said I shouldn't have said this to her and made her feel guilty. I said I was just disappointed she let this happen and expected her to be the responsible one if my brother wasn't. He said I have to apologize, but I'm unsure whether I was completely at fault here because I feel there's a bit of neglect on her part.
You're the asshole. My father and uncle have both had type 1 since they were 5 years old. They are both now late 60s. Back then it was a death sentence. Docs told them they'd be lucky to see 30. Since children they were able to manage their health with little to no issues. In my 40 years of life I've seen my father go into diabetic shock once, and it was after a day of him pushing himself too hard in a home renovation. TLDR of this is your brother is an adult. As such it is his responsibility alone to manage his health. His wife is there as a support, not as a nurse. Your parents failed him, and now he's failing himself. You taking it out on her is unjustified.
OP, my brother likes to eat rat poison because he thinks it won't kill him even though it has nearly killed him many times. My family had to be vigilant to make sure he didn't eat rat poison. When he married, we said it was his wife's responsibility to make sure he didn't eat rat poison. He ate rat poison, which is obviously his wife's fault, so I confronted her. Literally everyone: isn't it your brother's fault because he keeps eating rat poison? OP, what an utterly absurd thing to suggest. You and your family are Oz. Your brother is the biggest awe. He is a grown man who is responsible for not neglecting his own health. Tell the doofus to stop eating rat poison.
There's something very, very wrong here, and it not your brother's wife. Your brother is diabetic. His condition is his responsibility. By the family taking control and enabling him to devolve himself of any responsibility, you have enabled him to opt out of his own care. His wife is not responsible for his condition or managing his condition. Because you and the family have become used to looking after him, you have mistakenly assumed that this is also the role of his wife. It is not. I'd love to think that having a hyper attack may have scared your brother into taking control of his own health and his own life, but somehow I feel it unlikely. If you want to lay the blame anywhere, then lay it on yourself and your own family for letting him get away with this bullshit for so long. He needs a huge wake-up call. His first hypo attack probably isn't enough. He will have more in one day. It is very probable that he will coma and die. That's the hard truth. Eating what he likes and injecting less insulin will hasten that event, and there is nothing you can do about it. It's his business. He is in control of his own destiny and no one can or should interfere with this. Had you not taken over in the first place, he probably wouldn't have been in this position. So lay off his wife. It was probably terrifying for her. She didn't sign up to be his mother, his nurse or his keeper, she signed up to be his wife. She cannot police him 24 hours a day, and not should she. This is a chance for a massive reality check for you all. Don't let it pass you by. And yes, AITA, but only because of your own ignorance about responsibilities.